What's up, peeps? Hope we're all doing well. Today we have a very important video around an esports team in the Rainbow Six Siege scene. A very important one because we have now spoken to several players out there and a team that has allegedly outstanding debts in excess of $100,000. And a team who somehow still fields a roster in the NAL for Rainbow Six despite having dozens of players and former staff members complain about still having unpaid debts to the organization. Today I sit down with a former analyst and manager from the team and interview him about his experience and why he is owed a totaling debt of around $16,000, just a piece of the pie in this incredible puzzle of what is Mirage Esports. So I hope you guys all enjoy. Thank you for sharing and leaving comments down below, and we will see what happens with this R6 team. If Ubisoft steps in, will they be stopped? Or will these people ever be paid? And a huge starting point for all of this was actually years ago when I heard about them not paying people, but it has continued on for a couple of years with people remaining unpaid in full as they actually got announced to be back in the North American League for R6. And a lot of people were interested by this, by Matthew saying Ubisoft is promoting not paying your players by keeping organizations like Mirage in the league. Why is Mirage in the pilot program when they don't know how to send payments out to their players with whom they have a legally binding contract? Yet Ubi still advertises their skin. We have many replies to this, including promoting organizations that scam and breach contracts with players is very reasonable. Get Mirage off NAL for the sake of everyone. Absolutely embarrassing that you still allow Mirage to field the team. Why is Mirage here? Get them out. Get rid of Mirage. We do not want them. And another response from Frankie, one of the many players owed, saying last pay I received was in June of last year. And no, it was not from Mirage, but we are still owed almost $50,000 as a team. And that, of course, piqued my interest. And Twitter notifications suck, by the way. If you guys ever have stories like this, my DMs are the best place to go because notifications, they don't tell me when I get tagged in stories like this, although repeatedly, because it comes out to over a dozen people who are still owed money, including two different former R6 rosters owed money by R6 team, and that being Mirage. And so I reached out to one who has also tweeted about his lengthy story, that being DNA, who is a former analyst and manager of this team. I'll let him give you guys a quick introduction, and then let's really break down what is potentially going on over at Mirage.
So most people in the community know me as DNA. My name is David Thomas. I'm an older person, so I'm gonna be 47 here in a few weeks. So for the esports scene, gaming in general, I'm considered to most as a dinosaur, basically. I got with Mirage, we'll fast forward through all of that. I got with Mirage, I want to say in 2020, maybe 21. I was right there at the end, and I was brought on by Christian, who was the ex Dark Zero analyst, and he was the coach of the team, and we got this big thing that they're going to move all the NAL teams to Vegas and all this stuff. So, and
I also do want to preface before we get too far in, I want to make note that apparently Mirage is trying to make payments, you know, subtly here and there, although very slowly, and no one paid to full. I do believe that it comes a certain amount of time and a certain debt accrued where it's irresponsible for a team to keep on fielding rosters when they can't pay old staff or old rosters to full. And I think that's a fair statement to make. Although they are trying, there comes a point where there needs to be a cutoff, and you probably just shouldn't be in the scene if you can't pay the people who are playing for you. And I think that's fair. How they come to be in these positions, though, is you have people put into positions where they are trying to achieve their goals, like someone like DNA, who is managing a team in R6, and he then feels it's his responsibility to pay rent and utilities on his own credit card because the team, they fall behind on payments. So it comes to the manager who is like, okay, what do? Do I kick out all of these players and send them home? Or do I foot the bill for a little while on the promise that I'll be paid back? I think a lot of people, given his position, probably would have done the same thing. They were promised they would be paid. They take on this debt, and that debt accrues interest because it never gets paid by the people who are supposed to be paying.
Mirage couldn't, for whatever reason, enter a lease in Vegas because they were a Canadian organization and nobody would give them a lease because they're, I don't know, it was really weird. So he couldn't sign a lease or couldn't find a lease or didn't want to do it, or I don't know. What ended up happening is the house in Vegas was in my name. All the utilities in Vegas were in my name. Everything about that house in Vegas was 100% in my name. I did that on the promise that nothing's going to come back on me. Everything's going to be paid for.
And eventually, a really important note here that DNA gives me is he ultimately felt like he was held hostage because he had so much invested. He was putting so much of his paycheck on the line for rent, whether it was for a different Airbnb as they moved out of the first house or utility bills. He was so far in that he felt he was held hostage ultimately because if he then spoke out, he knew he would never recoup the money he was owed from the team. So he kept quiet and kept footing the bills and kept getting paid late every now and again for partial payments. And it kind of kept teasing him along until the debt was so extreme. Like, what are you going to do?
It was always some kind of story like, oh, well, we sent it to the wrong bank, or he gave me the wrong banking information, or he wanted it to go to this account and not this account. There was always some kind of like thing. And with the payments. Now, when it came to the utilities, those were all in my name. So and in Vegas, and it was a huge house. So I'm not exaggerating when I'd say the electric bill for 1 month was $900 in the summer. So I'm waiting for money from Mirage, but I have a $900 electric bill that needs to be paid. So what do I do? Well, the only thing I can do to make sure that the guys still have electricity is pay it on a credit card, and then take that money when I get paid and pay the credit card off.
Need to take care of these players because no one else is. And you find yourself in these shoes where if ownership's not going to do it, you feel as if they're still going to fulfill those promises in the end, or what kept you in it for so long?
Initially, I was always under the impression that, this is going to get taken care of. I'm going to be made whole. But at the same time, my job as a team manager, I always felt, and an analyst, is to make sure that these players could do what they were brought onto this team to do, which is play the game. From a financial standpoint, it started to turn into where I felt like I was almost being held hostage because I had so much money invested at this point. Now I can't say anything. Now I can't come out and do anything, nor can I walk away because I could essentially be walking away from thousands of dollars. So like I got to a point where I just felt like I was almost like held hostage in a way.
Was it a feeling of you had so much invested that if you walked away, you certainly weren't going to recoup what you had invested?
Absolutely. And I still don't think I would, but I'm just to the point now where I don't care. If I don't get a cent back, which I really hope doesn't happen, I don't care because I'm done watching this organization take and exploit people for their gain.
And he also talks about how these players never got a stress-free situation where they could just sit down and compete because they were always worried about, hey, our rent's being paid, but ultimately, now payments are getting further and further behind. Now we're moving houses, and now our manager is footing the bills for our stuff to get shipped here and our utilities to be paid. There was never a stress-free moment where everyone was paid up to date, and it just kept going and snowballing out of control. And so I do empathize with the situation, although there is a bit of naivety in falling for these kind of things. They are so common in esports. You have to remember these people are in positions of chasing their dreams and are trusting people. They are trusting management and ownership that they will eventually be paid, something that unfortunately people fall for time and time again, which leads us to where we are today, a list of over a dozen people and staff, half of whom I've already reached out to confirm these numbers, and DNA also has a list. He has a full Excel documented sheet, who the owner, by the way, of Mirage Esports is fully knowing of the list and the outstanding debts they have. I guess to give a little credit where it's due, like he knows of the debts he owes, but he just can't afford to pay them. To date, we have around $60,000 owed to the following players, and that's not the total: Benji, Melted, Mohes, Guerra, Dexter, DNA, Nyx, Kento, Drip, Hyper, Marmalade, Dream, Thomas. A socials guy, Matt, is owed $1,000. By the way, DNA is separate from that $60,000. Add another $16,000 on top of that. And then a separate team is owed around $50,000. Like Frankie, you guys saw the tweet, that being Rampy, Spiker, Kansan, Meepy, Slothy, and Justin. All in all, the alleged total amounts in excess of $100,000. And yet they are still allowed to field a roster in the NAL with God knows what is in the contract, because DNA has also told me maybe they're changing the contract so these players can't get out. It's like, at what point does Ubisoft have to step in and at least say something? Or even the team needs to make a public statement. On socials, they haven't made a post in the last year. And you wonder why? Because everyone knows you're not paying people. And it's just like this truth that everyone sees, and everyone says, but nothing is done about it. So I just thought that we'd finally post a video and we'll see what happens. You know, I do think that Mirage intends to pay it back, but ultimately when you fall so far behind, you got to wonder, are you ever going to be able to? And as I've covered this story more and more, I have been told some things that are quite egregious on behalf of Mirage Esports. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And so I think it's fair to say you should be paying these people or you shouldn't be in esports, because there's a lot of other stuff that could be said right now that I will hold back and that some players are holding back in fear of their NDAs somehow still upholding in court, which sucks because they got a lot of stories. So thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for being here. Hopefully something is done about this, and we'll wait and see. Mirage Esports owing a lot of money to a lot of people. I can only hope that it gets paid, because of the people that I talk to, they don't have a lot of hope that it's going to be, but that money is rightfully theirs. Welcome to esports, everybody. If you got stories like this, my DMs are always open. Take care of yourselves. Hydrate. Code Lucky down below with Buffed. We love them. And thanks for all of you guys for being here and subbing. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.